Welcome to Let's Talk About It. I'm Andre Butler, your host. I'm excited to hang out with you today. I believe we're going to have a great time today. We're going to have some fun today. Of course, I want to thank all of our partners, all of our Cashapp givers, everyone that's helping make this possible. You're making a difference, man. You're giving, you're praying. It's helping us reach people all over the world, helping us accomplish our mission of really being 1 million strong. And so today I have with us a couple that really they're doing some pretty special things. And I'm going to kind of get out of their way. I'm going to introduce them and let you know a little bit about them, but then I'm gonna let them tell you their story. This is DeAngelo and Whitney Moss, and they are a lot of things. DeAngelo is a Christian counselor, a coach. He's the founder of Free by Truth. Together, they're the founder of the Dating Project. Whitney, of course, is also doing so much. She's the leader of Singlehood and Sisterhood. Of course, she's someone that has had, as a true Christian influencer. I think I found her online one day on a pretty funny video, but that's another conversation. But we're excited to have you guys with us, and thank you for being a part of this.
Of course, it's a pleasure to be here with you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I agree. This is going to be a good time.
Yes.
So a lot of people that we're connected to, of course, know who you guys are, but not everybody does. Do you mind sharing your story a little bit?
Okay. Well, my name is DeAngelo Moss. I am a Christian counselor. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. Detroit all day.
Mhm.
But I grew up there, and at a very, very early age, I feel like the Lord called me to ministry. So probably when I was in high school, that's when I really began to go after the Lord. And little did I know that would lead me down a path that I never would have thought that I would be on. But fast forward to a few years later, I ended up going to Bible school, graduated from there. From there, the Lord led me to move to Colorado, where I worked for a very well-known ministry. If I said the name, most people will know who that ministry was, and the leaders of that. But from there, that's when I really felt like the Lord began to call me into the ministry that He ultimately wanted me to pursue, which was actually in the area of addictions, like pornography and masturbation. I didn't realize that when He was telling me to go to college and go to Bible school, He was preparing me not to be a pastor, but to be essentially the porn guy for people in church. So today, I run a ministry called Free by Truth, which focuses on helping Christians who struggle with addictions to pornography, masturbation, get free from that. And it's been amazing. We've helped, I don't know, we've lost count of how many people have gone through that program, but men and women in that scenario. But then I met my beautiful wife, and after we've connected, we actually started a company called the Dating Project. And that's another ministry that, has been really near and dear to my heart. And this is something where we help Christians who are ultimately wanting to find love, find their kingdom partner. So I'll stop there, and I'll let my wife have a few things to say.
So, Whitney Moss, I was raised in Muskegon, Michigan, 3 hours away from in Detroit. I grew up in church. My mom was a minister of music for over 30 years. My dad, he led the choir, and I grew up in an apostolic Pentecostal church. And I grew up very creative because my parents are creative. I played basketball growing up as well. 2015, I began to create content online. I got my first MacBook and just started recording. And I would say 2022, you might have saw me on the yellow couch with my hair off my shoulders. And, oh my God, virality, all the things. But my heart has always been to connect with people. My testimony as far as singleness goes back 12 years. I was 12 years single before DeAngelo. And within that time, it's really hard to hope and keep your hope alive. And so the Lord prompted me. Before we got married, I released my community called Singlehood and Sisterhood. And it's designed for single women to become whole and build sisterhood in the process and change their perspective on singleness and heal and all the good things. And the Lord is really blessing the group. And I'm super excited for what's to come forward. for it. And so happy to be here.
We're thrilled to have you with us. So, how did you guys meet? How did that actually happen?
Depends on whose story you want. You want my story or his story?
Ah, that's the real question.
Well, so Whitney was way more visible than I was at the time that we connected. Of course, she had the viral moment, which ultimately put her on my radar. And found out she was from Michigan and all the things. I'm like, oh man, this lady's dope or whatever. Start following her on social media, and after a while, I'm like, wait a minute, she kind of has some substance to her, a little bit of sauce,
Mhm.
But so I started following her. I'm like, man, I'm kind of starting to like this girl. Let me see what's up. I'm single. She's single. She says she's looking for a dude. Let me see what's up. So I ended up sending her a DM, and I would love to say that, yeah, that was it. That was all she wrote. She responded and everything was great, but that's not what happened. About a year before I ever actually acknowledged that I existed in the world. So,
Mhm.
uh, but yeah, I sent her that DM. I stayed in touch. I would occasionally respond to different things that she would put on her stories or, a post that she would do. Never got any attention. Never got any attention. But it just so happened that one day she played a whining song, and I responded, said, "Oh man, this is the jam," or whatever. And for whatever reason, that was the thing that got her to respond to me. And, there's a lot more pieces to that story, but
For
uh,
sure.
from there, she ended up. We were able to connect. I became a subscriber, and baby, how about this? I'll let you take it from there. I'll let you give your part from there.
Yeah. So from my perspective, having a big following, you do have
Right.
requests, like hidden requests.
Mhm.
And, if you haven't talked to somebody, they just be hanging out.
Mhm.
And so even for me, people reaching out and stuff, I always had to kind of safeguard myself. So when he responded to the whinings, I was like, oh, he got taste in music, right? And so he had a blue check for his business. So I would see him comment periodically and he would just be around. So I was like, oh, interesting. And so he pursued in different ways, but we'll fast forward to being a subscriber.
Mhm.
And my subscribers I used to engage with. So then we just started talking. I'm like, oh, he cool. He got sound faith and wisdom, and he was really nice. He was saying he loved what I stood for. He was asking questions. So then he shot a shot. He shot a direct shot, like with
Good.
form. He had some
Right.
form on it. And so and so so I went to his page, and DeAngelo's page is mostly free by truth.
Mhm.
It's conviction. It's not really showing much personality. So I was just honest. And unfortunately, I did used to fib around, like I'm not available, I'm not interested, or I have a boyfriend, and that would be Jesus in my mind.
Mhm.
But it's kind of, fibby. But I was just honest. I was like, I'm not interested in you that way. But if you want to continue to converse, I'm available. And he didn't miss a beat. So I was like, wow, he whole. He's not rejection prone. And because men usually can get different if you reject them. And so fast forward, kept getting to know each other. He was coming to Nashville, and he's a business mind. And so he said, I have some business things I think could help your company, your platform. So I was like, yeah, I'm not business minded at all. I'm learning, but creativity is my jam. And so we met because of business.
Mhm.
And when I saw him, I was like, oh, you attractive. Hallelujah. And so that just got me over the hump.
Uh-huh.
And from there we just we connected, and I let him know I was interested, and we got to know each other.
So you guys said a lot of things there, a lot of parts of your story, um, obviously have been helping people. One of them, a question that I guess some have is, if you are someone that's a little older, meaning you're not 22, and you want to be married, maybe you thought you'd already be married by now, and nothing's happening. What do you say to somebody like that? What should they be doing?
there's a lot of areas that I feel like people need to really focus on in order to be not only to just connect, but also to be prepared to connect, right? I think first of all, your relationship with God is most important. I mean, I feel like, that's one of those things that a lot of people know, but the reality is the reason why my wife and I are together is because of our obedience in those minute things early on in our lives when the Lord was telling us to do these little small things, even down to the fact that, I was able to meet her for business because of all the things that the Lord had called me to do that I was just obedient in leading up to that point. But that's so I was able to actually have something to contribute before she said, "Yeah, I want to date you." But I would say that number one, relationship with God is the first and foremost. Make sure you're tight on that. But then secondly, I think especially for people who feel like they're older. I mean, I met my wife when I was 37. I'd have been 37 at the time when we first met, and we were married. I got married at 38. So, I would consider that to be later in life. But the thing is, I never felt like I wasn't going to meet my person. I felt confident that God had somebody in store for me. It just was a matter of me, continue to do what I have to do in order to meet her. And I was living my life. I was doing a lot of fun things. I was exploring and doing everything I know to do in terms of like living my life. But then when it came time for me to actually engage with people that I found attractive, I was willing to actually do that. I shot my shot when I saw somebody that I was attracted to, obviously, like with my wife. I wasn't afraid of that. And I think those are probably the things that I feel like most people just need to focus on more than anything. Relationship with God, live your life, be who God has called you to be outside of marriage. And then thirdly, if you find someone who is a good fit for you, be strategic in actually going about trying to connect with that person.
That's one thing I like about your story. And we're in the middle
Good.
of a relationship series now at our church. And one of the things that I found myself spending a little time on that, in one sense, you kind of go, why do you even need to say this? Is that when you do feel like you're ready and you see someone you're attracted to, go up to them, approach them, be intentional about actually trying to date them. And we
Mhm.
joke about the Bible story where I think it was the men of Benjamin had lost the war and they weren't going to be able to have any wives. And so they came up with this plan and said, you guys go hide in the vineyards. And when the ladies come out to dance and dances, catch you a wife. And so
Wow.
we joke about that because that means them brothers they're all looking at the same girls, right? They're all like, and bro, you my friend, but I see her, you see her, we're gonna see who get her first, and
Right.
that's actually kind of a picture of how this thing's supposed to work to some degree, right? He that findeth a wife, and your spouse isn't just gonna drop in your lap, particularly as a man. When you see
Good.
someone, be willing to start that conversation, be willing to present yourself, and be intentional about it. Don't play games, make sure you
Exactly.
let her know what your intentions are. But so anyway, when you said that, it made me think about that. I appreciate that. That's a man. It's like, I'm gonna message you. I'm gonna message you again. I'm gonna continue to have these
Good.
conversations with you, and then before you know it, the light comes on, and she's like, "Wait a minute." So
That part.
That's what it is. And one thing I'll say to that as well is, I feel like, we're in a dating space. We talk to people all the time. And one of the things that we get from guys, unfortunately, is a lot of guys want to be married, good guys and all the things. And they might feel like they are not prepared for marriage in one way or another. But the thing that I'm hearing most frequently from men is most men feel like this you know, finding a wife, getting a girl situation should be instinctive for guys. Like it's like, oh, this is a man. I'm a man, so I should just be able to go up to a girl and a lot of these guys don't feel like they need to go through this process of actually learning how to do that effectively. And this is kind of where the dating project comes in to try to help some people because the truth is a lot of guys or women too, but we just don't have a lot of experience, particularly people who have grown up in the church, because we don't go to clubs like a lot of other people do. Maybe some people do, I guess, but many of us don't. Many of us kind of have we go to church and we live our fairly monotonous life. But then when a person comes into our path that we like, we don't really know how to show up. We might be too too, I don't know what the proper word is, but we
Spooky
just come,
sometimes.
Awkward.
Yeah.
yeah, awkward,
The Lord told me that you my wife, that,
yeah, come on
yeah.
now, like relax. And it's simply because we don't know how to do it. But I when I was on my journey, I actually read books and I learned like how do you show yourself attractive to the opposite sex. And I mean, honest to goodness, like that's how I was able to kind of, pursue and get my wife. So anyway.
Yeah. Your answer was all in the line of what I was thinking. Even he who findeth a wife findeth a good thing. Something that my mom used to tell me to pray is, Lord, put me in a place to be found. And that place is first in the Lord, but then it's a physical place too. And when I talk to a lot of single women, pursuing wholeness is so important because it impacts how you show up, right? A lot of women desire marriage, but they might not have confidence to even look twice at a handsome man. And it could stem from rejection, it could stem from stuff they've experienced. I'm like, sis, you got to smile. You have to be welcoming. A man he don't know to pursue you if you're giving closed. Right? And so even within the body language, the inner work shows up. And so I think, like DeAngelo was saying, living your best life, going places as Christians, it can be limited, but creating hobbies, doing things that make yourself interesting. Because when you meet somebody, the fruit will show. In conversation, do you have anything to talk about? Or has it been, oh, I just want marriage? It's like life is full of colors. So experience some so you could share a rainbow when you meet somebody. So that's what I would say.
I'm sure all of us went through, and I know a lot of people have gone through that maybe can hinder them in this journey is breakups. You enter into a relationship with someone, at some point you believed this might be it, and then it wasn't. And sometimes that ends in a amicable way, sometimes it doesn't. Whitney, what would you tell somebody that's trying to heal from a breakup right now?
Yeah, I would say look at the debris that happened in the breakup, because it's different pieces that go into a breakup, and invite the Lord into those spaces. I think healing is so important because it enables you to be able to make room to receive. But if you're dealing with your wounds and your brokenness, then you're looking for a filler versus coming from a whole space, right? And so I think it's really important to take your time in that. A lot of people don't want to feel the space of singleness in between the next person. A lot of people don't have faith for the next person. So they do cycles on the other side. And so I would say take your time in healing. Understand your healing is contributing to the reward of your next relationship, and having faith and trust in the process that there's somebody better designed for you. And it's no shade to what didn't work out. It's just that's an actual thing. There are better fits for people.
Well, another thing that I know particularly men deal with, but a lot of women too, when they're single and unfortunately when they're married as well, is pornography. And it's
Mm.
just so easy to get to it. At any moment, you can slip up and find yourself right back into that world. And I know, DeAngelo, that's something that you have really helped people to become free of. Um, I know there are people going to watch this that are struggling with it. They might be a Christian, they might be serving in their church, they might be married, they might be a minister. What do you tell somebody that's in that place where they feel like, I know this is wrong, I just can't stop?
And this is such a loaded question, but I'll give you the quickest response that I can give. So, with Free by Truth, we only work with people who are Christians, and the reason why we only work with these people is because I personally don't believe that the freedom that the Bible presents is available for anyone other than a Christian. Not saying that people can't experience a level of sobriety, but sobriety is different than freedom, especially the biblical freedom. Yeah, it's a different thing. And um, Jesus said, I believe it's in John, he said, you are truly my disciples if you remain faithful to my teachings, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And the truth that sets us free is, I believe, the gospel. And the gospel makes it very clear that the way to walk in freedom actually comes from like walking in the spirit. There's this element when you really dive into it, there's this element of the flesh versus the spirit, right? And what people are experiencing when they struggle with pornography, a good percentage of the time, like the majority of the time, I would say, is a manifestation of like fleshly desires, which we all have. Well, we all have these different things. But where the Bible is clear is that if you want to overcome those things, you actually have to walk in the spirit. That's the only way to truly combat your flesh. So our program focuses on the biblical way of doing that so that people not only are they're not trying to just do behavior modification type things, but they're literally using the power that comes from God in order to change what they feel within themselves and literally have a place of come from a place of it's almost like a higher way of being and or a higher way of attaining freedom, if that makes sense. So I don't that kind of doesn't answer exactly what your question was, but hopefully that kind of brings clarity to the way that I think about it and what I present to people.
Well, yeah, it does. I mean, Galatians 5:16 is one of those black and white scriptures. Walk in the spirit and you will not fulfill the lust of the flesh.
Mm,
So it's just simple. Like if you walk in the spirit, it's impossible to walk in the spirit and at the same time
good.
fulfill the lust of the flesh. And
Mhm.
so if you just learn how to walk in the spirit, you can defeat anything. And so I get that. And the psalmist said, thy word have I hid in my heart that I
Come
might
on.
not sin against thee. Same thing. That's a part of walking in the spirit. So I love your approach to it. That's the right approach. Now I never heard before what you said, the difference between sobriety and freedom. I'm gonna use that. I'm not giving you no credit either, but
Go ahead, take it.
but I'm gonna use that. We got a freedom encounter this weekend at our church, so we're gonna use that because that's good. That's very true. That you're not gonna really
Yes.
walk in freedom without Jesus, and that's why people fall back into things and just seem like they're going through the same cycle year after year, decade after decade. So,
Mhm.
man, I appreciate what you're doing there. So you guys have found each other. You've you know already just having a huge impact. Um, Somebody's watching this and they're saying, "I want to find my person." What should they be looking for? What, for example, Whitney, what should the ladies be looking for in a man?
Ooh, that's a good question. A lot of women are looking for Jesus to come to them, but I would say look for Jesus in the man. And for me, value systems, understanding your value systems and seeing if they align with whoever you're, vetting. Because a lot of women don't know how to vet. They just, they're found, then you do have to choose them back, but to actually understand if you're compatible. That's a real thing, asking good questions. For me, things that I will look for in a man is fruit. Like, what is the fruit of their life? They could say they love the Lord, but is there any fruit? Even daily fruit. Do you work out? Do you take care of yourself? Um, these are things that I care about, that a man cares about for himself first. Is he responsible? So, for women, because they have like a money bracket in the world, like he has to make X amount of money. For me, it's security. Have you secured that area in your life? What's your mentality around money? Right. And so I can go down a whole list. We actually both had lists, but something for me too was conflict resolution. How do they deal with conflict? I remember the first time me and D had had our first fellowship, intense fellowship, which is like kind of argument, disagreement. And what I was used to was men, once you get into it with somebody, they just leave and they just leave you be because you've done wrong, you know. And I remember before D left, he said, "How can I support you?" And I wasn't used to love existing in that space. It's usually just you deal with what and whoever comes back first. But D was really good at showing me that it's possible to love someone past circumstance. You have a choice to love them past the deed that was done. And for me, that resonated God's love. And it gave me peace. I had a lot of peace. A lot of women have intuition and discernment when it comes to relationships, but they bypass it because they don't want to lose a good thing. But if you don't have peace within your being, then that will show up some kind of way. God is faithful. And this is the last thing I remember asking the Lord, is DeAngelo the one? And I just knew I would hear a clear yes or no. I didn't. He didn't give me a yes or no. He said, "Where my peace lies is your answer." Right? And so I really want that to settle. And I could talk about peace in a lot of ways because people talk about protect your peace. And in real life, a healthy relationship will disrupt what's not healthy in you. And it feels like they're taking my peace, but no, it's actually growth that needs to happen. So there's nuance in that, in understanding that too. But yeah,
It's good, babe.
thanks, babe.
All right, DeAngelo, what are fellas looking for?
Oh man. Oh man. I would say, what a man should look for. I feel like everybody has different desires. There's just things that different people value. But the way that I would answer this question is, I think it's unique for every person, but I think it's important for every person to be clear about what they want. I think a lot of people go into dating and relationships unclear about what it is that they want. Like they've never sat down and determined what it is that I actually am attracted to in a person of the opposite sex, right? So that's what I recommend for people. I say, sit down, actually write a list of all the things that you tend to find attractive, whatever those things are. I did this and I came up with a list of over 60 things, it was nice. I wrote everything, whatever it was, nothing was off limits, talked about everything, right? But what I always recommend for people is after you make that initial list of all the things you just, that are great and that you like in a person, then make a real list. And this real list I refer to is really the list of your non-negotiables. And this list shouldn't be any more than 8 things. 8 things. I always recommend 8 things. And I say, write down the 8 things that if you found in a person, you would seriously consider moving forward with that individual. And what this does is it makes you really step back and think about not only what's important to you, but where you want to be ultimately in your relationship, right? Like you're not just dating somebody just to date them, but if you want to have a healthy marriage one day, the 8 things that'll be on that list will be very specific and it'll be catered toward you leading a life toward that desired marriage, right? So it makes you really hyper focus on the things that are important. For me, I had a lot of, superficial things on my list, my initial list of 60 things. But when it came down to me really dwindling the important things down, it came to be, answers like, for example, I want her to value my best interests over her own because I'm going to value her best interest over my own. It was things like that. Beauty was on there. Listen, she got to be fine. That's just the world is better that way. What it is. But yeah, but that was like, that there was other things that are really important for me. So I just say, get really clear on what it is you're looking for.
That's good. That's good. I think I like that breaking it down to the bottom 8 or the most important 8. I just came from a conference and the minister was talking about not getting so caught up in the details of how God does things. Sometimes we want to tell God
It's
exactly
good.
how things are supposed to be done, and his ways are better than ours. And so trust him with the details. Don't get caught up in, well, this, they have to be this height, this eye color, this, that, and the other. If they are
Hmm.
the main things and they're the
Come on.
person God has brought across your path, God knows you better than you do. God knows who you will like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what you will like, I should say. So I think that's really important. That's good advice as well. So thank you guys for joining us. I'm not going to keep you forever today. I could, because this is some good stuff. But people can find you, of course, on social media, right? And on Instagram and the like. Um, you how do people get a hold of what you're doing with the dating project and and your ministry for getting free from pornography and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So, of course, both Whitney's and my Instagram is a great place to get connected. We'll lead you where you need to go from there. But if you're interested in a dating project, you can visit thedatingproject.co. Thedatingproject.co, and we can get you started. Or you can just download the Dating Project app from any app store. As far as Free by Truth, you can go to freebytruth.co, freebytruth.co. Or if you're not comfortable with going down that path, you can literally just send me a DM with the word freedom in it, and I'll know exactly what that means, and then I'll respond with appropriate next steps for you in order to get the help you need. And then you got your ministry too.
Yeah, what's your Instagram, DeAngelo? I don't know if they're gonna be up all the way.
So yeah, it's just DeAngelo Moss, DeAngelo Moss.
Nice. Yeah, so for my community, Singlehood and Sisterhood, you can go to www.singlehoodandsisterhood.com. And for my comedy, Just Witty, JustWhiti, that's everywhere. And we also have the Dating Project on Instagram if you want to stay connected with what we're doing, front facing on Instagram, events and different things. So, and that Instagram is official.
The Dating Project official.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. This has been great. I know it's going to help a lot of people. And thank you all who are watching this. Once again, our partners and our givers. And want to mention to you that we have a brand new romantic novel out now called Match Made in Heaven. That's available now based on the movie that we released. So you can get that on Amazon.com. And even a Christian single out called Green Flags. You can find that anywhere. So we got a lot going on. We're excited about what God's doing. We look forward to catching up with you next time, and know that God has a future for you.